She said it would make our marriage stronger. An open relationship, more freedom, more honesty, no more secrets. I agreed, thinking I was saving us. But I didn't realize she was already gone, living a double life that would destroy everything we built. Now, I'm not asking questions anymore. I'm done being the fool. It's time to expose the truth, burn her perfect little world to the ground, and make sure she feels every ounce of the betrayal she left behind. This isn't a story about forgiveness. It's about revenge. I never thought I'd be the type of guy who'd find himself in this situation, staring at my wife, Alexis, across the dinner table, while the word divorce hovered unspoken between us. It wasn't always like this. We were happy once, or at least I believed we were. We met 15 years ago at a friend's party. Alexis was captivating, the life of every conversation. I was quieter, more grounded. We balanced each other out. She taught me to loosen up, and I gave her stability. That's what marriage is supposed to be, right? A partnership. But looking back now, I realized that cracks had been forming long before the words open relationship ever left her lips. It started subtly, a few jokes here and there about monogamy being outdated, about how couples these days were embracing more progressive arrangements. I didn't think much of it at the time. People talk, right? But the jokes turned into conversations, and the conversations turned into suggestions. We should talk about exploring an open relationship, she said one night, her tone casual, as if she were suggesting a new restaurant to try. I was stunned. We were 11 years into our marriage. We had 2 beautiful kids, James and Lila. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Why change that? Where is this coming from? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Alexis shrugged. I've been reading about it. It's supposed to be healthy for marriages. Keeps things fresh. Fresh? I couldn't wrap my head around it. I loved her. I was committed to her. And as far as I knew, she felt the same. But something had shifted in her. She became restless, distant. I chalked it up to work stress. Her job at the marketing firm was demanding, and she traveled a lot. I thought we just needed time to reconnect. I was wrong. One night, she dropped a bombshell. She had cheated. Just once, she insisted. A mistake. A moment of weakness while she was on a work trip. I'm sorry, she said, tears in her eyes. It didn't mean anything. I love you. I love our family. I forgave her. Or at least, I tried to. We went to therapy. We talked through the betrayal. I convinced myself that we could move past it, that love was enough to fix the broken pieces. But in the back of my mind, her suggestion about an open relationship lingered. And then, about a year after her confession, she brought it up again. It's just a way to be honest about what we want, she said, her voice calm and logical. It's better than pretending everything's fine while we suppress our desires. Her words made me feel small, like I wasn't enough, but I was terrified of losing her. So I agreed to talk about it. Talking turned into rules. Rules turned into agreements. And before I knew it, I was living in a marriage that didn't feel like a marriage at all. The reality was, it wasn't an open relationship. It was a one-sided arrangement where she did whatever she wanted while I stayed home with the kids. She had dates, flings, weekend getaways, and every time I tried to bring up my discomfort, she'd shut me down. You're not even trying, she'd say. I'm giving you freedom too. It's your choice not to take it. But it wasn't that simple. I wasn't interested in anyone else. I wanted her. I wanted us. Then came the final straw. The night she told me she was going away for the weekend. Alone, she claimed. Just some time to herself. I didn't believe her. So, I followed her. Something wasn't right. Alexis had been talking about a solo trip for weeks, dropping hints that she needed time to recharge. She kept calling it self-care, but I knew her too well. The bags she packed weren't for a quiet retreat. They were meant for something far more indulgent. I'll be back Monday, she said casually that Friday morning, planting a quick kiss on my cheek. Make sure the kids finish their homework. That kiss lingered, not in a good way. It felt like a goodbye more than a see you later. And I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something I wasn't supposed to know. The thought gnawed at me all day. By evening, I couldn't sit still anymore. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I packed a bag, got in my car, and followed her. Her destination? A lakeside resort 2 hours away. When I pulled into the parking lot, her car was already there. My heart thudded in my chest as I checked into the hotel under a fake name. I felt ridiculous, a husband playing detective, but I had to know. I waited for hours, pacing my room, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Then, just after 9 p.m., I saw her. Alexis emerged from her room, dressed in a way that made my stomach twist. A silky dress clung to her like a second skin, and her smile, that smile, was one I hadn't seen in a long time. But it wasn't for me. It was for someone else. I followed her at a distance as she made her way to the resort's private lounge. Music pulsed faintly from inside, but it wasn't a party atmosphere. The lights were dim, the mood intimate. I slipped in quietly, unnoticed, blending into the shadows. What I saw made my blood run cold. Alexis wasn't alone. She was surrounded by men, too many for a casual meetup. They hovered close, whispering things that made her laugh in a way that sent chills down my spine. Her gestures were inviting, her body language open, like she belonged to all of them. And she did. As I watched, it became clear that this wasn't her first time here. There was a familiarity to her movements, routine she followed without hesitation. One man placed a hand on her waist. Another whispered in her ear. She nodded, smiling, before leading them deeper into the lounge. Through a door marked private, I stood frozen, torn between rage and disbelief. A part of me wanted to storm in, to tear down the facade and confront her. But another part, the rational part, told me to wait, to see what I wasn't supposed to see. I followed quietly, my footsteps muffled by the carpeted floor. The door wasn't locked, and I slipped inside unnoticed. The room beyond was lavish, almost decadent. Plush sofas lined the walls, and soft lighting cast everything in a golden glow. In the center, a group had gathered, laughing and sipping wine. It wasn't a wild party, it was more subdued, but there was an undeniable tension in the air. And there she was. Alexis sat on one of the sofas, her dress slipping off her shoulder, revealing more than I cared to see. Her legs were crossed, but it didn't seem like she was trying to keep herself covered. She was completely at ease. Then, one by one, the men moved closer. I won't spell out what happened next. You don't need every detail to understand. The laughter turned to murmurs. The casual touches became more intimate. Clothing was discarded like an afterthought. And Alexis, my wife, welcomed it all. I couldn't watch anymore. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I stumbled back, nearly knocking over a side table, but no one noticed. They were too engrossed in her. Slipping out of the room, I leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I just witnessed. But there was no sense to be found. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was who she had become. I made it back to my room in a daze, collapsing onto the bed. My phone buzzed with a message from her. Alexis, hope you and the kids are having a good night. Love you. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. How could she say those words after what I'd just seen? Love? No. Whatever this was, it wasn't love. And as I sat there in the dark, a terrifying realization hit me. This wasn't just about Alexis wanting freedom. It was about power, control. She had crafted a narrative where she got to live without limits, while I stayed trapped in the role of devoted husband and father. But not anymore. I wasn't going to confront her tonight. No, that would be too easy for her to dismiss, to twist into a story about misunderstanding and exploration. I needed proof, evidence, and most importantly, I needed to figure out how to reclaim my life before she destroyed it completely. There's a point in every man's life when something inside him just snaps. For me, it happened when I saw Alexis laughing with that man outside the resort, kissing him like she hadn't just left a room filled with others, like she hadn't shattered everything I thought we were. She moved with ease, no shame, no hesitation. I sat in my car, watching her. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, the person I built my life around. Except, she wasn't that person anymore. She hadn't been for a long time. I wasn't going to confront her right then and there. What was the point? There was no explanation she could give that would make this right. No apology that would undo the things I'd seen. She was no longer someone I needed to understand. She was someone I needed to protect myself from. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't some emotional affair born from loneliness or a midlife crisis. This was premeditated, calculated. Alexis had created a version of reality that allowed her to indulge in whatever dark urges she had, while keeping me tied to a life of loyalty and restraint. I wasn't going to beg her for answers. I wasn't going to argue or cry or ask her why. No, I was going to burn every bridge between us, and when I was done, she'd have nothing left to stand on. The plan begins. As I drove home, my mind spun with thoughts of how to dismantle the life we'd built together. I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't let her control the narrative. She'd spin this into some twisted sob story about how I wasn't enough for her, how she was forced to explore other relationships because I didn't meet her needs. No, this time, I was taking control. First, I needed proof. Real proof. Not just a few text messages or a half-baked story about following her to the resort. I needed something indisputable, something that would make her lies collapse in front of everyone she thought she could manipulate. Friends, family, and, most importantly, the court. I already had the phone cloning app set up on her device. The texts from the night before were damning, but they were only the tip of the iceberg. If Alexis had been living this double life for months, there would be more. Photos, videos, bank transactions. I needed to collect everything. When I got home, the kids were watching TV, oblivious to the storm brewing. I kissed them both on the head, my heart aching with the knowledge that their world was about to change forever. But I wouldn't let them be casualties in this war. I'd protect them, no matter what. I locked myself in my office, opened my laptop, and began going through everything Alexis had synced to the cloud. The first bombshell. It didn't take long before I hit pay dirt. Dozens of photos, messages, and videos flooded my screen. The men were different, but the pattern was the same. Different cities, different hotels. Each trip she took for work was another chapter in this twisted story. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A video. I hovered over it, my hand shaking slightly, unsure if I could handle what I was about to see. But I clicked it anyway. The video opened with Alexis's familiar laugh. But it wasn't the laugh I knew, the warm, genuine laugh I fell in love with. This was something else entirely. Wild, unrestrained. She was in a hotel room, surrounded by several men. The camera panned across the scene, capturing everything. Their faces, their actions, her. I stopped the video before it could play further, my stomach churning. This was no mistake. No one-time lapse in judgment. This was a lifestyle, a choice, and she had made it without me. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. The woman in the video wasn't the Alexis I married. That version of her was long gone. This was someone new, someone dangerous, setting the trap. By the time Alexis returned home on Monday, I had everything I needed. I had copied the videos, messages, and bank statements onto multiple flash drives. I had backups on secure servers. I wasn't going to let her talk her way out of this. As she walked through the door, she greeted the kids with the same bright smile, the same affectionate hugs. To anyone else, she looked like a loving mother coming home from a weekend away. But I knew better. "Jeremy," she called from the kitchen. "I'm home. Missed you." I didn't answer. I was in the living room, watching her with cold eyes as she breezed into the room, completely unaware that the ground beneath her was about to collapse. "Hey," she said, her tone softening when she saw me. "Everything okay?" I stood slowly, slipping my hands into my pockets. "Actually," I said, my voice calm. "We need to talk. To see my lawyer," I said coldly, walking to the door. "And after that, we'll see who really ends up trapped." I didn't wait for her response. I walked out, letting the door slam behind me, and didn't look back. When I walked out that door, I wasn't leaving to cool off or clear my head. I was done with Alexis and her twisted, self-serving version of reality. But I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. Not after what she'd done to me and to our family. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. His name is Mark Shepard, and I've known him since college. He's not just a good lawyer. He's ruthless when it comes to protecting his clients. When I stepped into his office, Mark took one look at my face and frowned. Jeremy, this isn't a social visit, is it? No, I said, my voice firm. I need to file for divorce. And I want it to be as airtight as possible. No way she's walking out of this with more than she deserves. Mark leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes studying me. What happened? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. She's been having affairs. Multiple. Over months. And I have proof. Texts, photos, videos. Everything. Mark didn't flinch. He's seen it all before. But what he said next made me realize just how serious he was taking this. Does she know you've got proof? She does now, I said bitterly. I confronted her before I came here. And of course, she turned it around on me, claimed I was spying on her, said it was my fault for not trusting her. Mark snorted. Classic move. Shift the blame. Make you the bad guy. Exactly. He nodded, grabbing a notepad. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to secure custody of the kids. That's priority number one. You need to establish yourself as the stable parent. Then we're going to freeze any joint assets. We don't want her cleaning out accounts once she realizes what's coming. Done, I said. I've already separated most of our finances. I just need to make sure the house stays mine. Mark scribbled a few more notes before looking up. We're going to hit her hard and fast, Jeremy. No warning. No mercy. She won't have time to react. Back home, the lies continue. When I got home that evening, the house was quiet. The kids were in their rooms, and Alexis was in the kitchen, sipping a glass of wine. She looked up when I walked in, her expression guarded. You're back, she said carefully. I didn't respond right away. I hung up my coat, took off my shoes, and walked into the kitchen. She watched me, waiting for me to say something. But I just stood there, letting the silence stretch out. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. Jeremy, can we talk? I shook my head slowly. There's nothing left to talk about. Her eyes flashed with anger. So that's it? You're just going to walk away from everything we've built? I leaned against the counter, folding my arms. Everything we built? You mean the life I built while you were off playing your games? That's not fair, she snapped. You've always been so controlling. You don't get to act like the victim now. I laughed bitterly. Controlling? You want to talk about control? You controlled this entire marriage with your lies and manipulation. And now you're upset that I won't let you get away with it? Her grip tightened around her wine glass. I made mistakes, but I'm still their mother. You can't just erase me from their lives. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. The only one who's going to be erased from their lives is you. If you keep trying to twist this around, I'm done playing by your rules, Alexis. The gloves are off. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. You're serious, she whispered. Dead serious. She set her glass down, her hands trembling slightly. Jeremy, please. We can figure this out. We don't have to destroy everything. You already destroyed it, I said coldly. I'm just making sure you don't get to pretend you're the victim when the truth comes out. The war begins. Over the next few days, things at home were tense but quiet. Alexis acted like everything was normal, trying to keep up appearances for the kids. But I knew better. She was biding her time, waiting to see what I'd do next. She didn't have to wait long. The first bomb dropped when she got a call from Mark's office, informing her that I'd filed for divorce and was requesting full custody of the kids. I was in the living room when she got the call. I watched as her face went pale, her hand clutching the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. When she hung up, she turned to me, her eyes blazing with fury. You filed for divorce? I met her gaze calmly. I did. And full custody? Are you kidding me? Nope. She took a step closer, her voice shaking with rage. You think you can take my kids away from me? They're our kids, I said evenly. And yes, I do. Because I'm the one who's been here for them. I'm the one who's put them first while you've been out living your double life. She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand to stop her. Save it, Alexis. You've said enough. She stared at me, her chest heaving, before turning and storming out of the room. I knew this was only the beginning. She wasn't going to go down without a fight. But neither was I. I didn't wait for Alexis to make the first move. She was unpredictable, but I knew one thing. She would try to control the narrative. She'd spin herself as the victim, paint me as the obsessive husband who just couldn't let her live. I wasn't going to let that happen. She'd built her life on lies, and now, brick by brick, I was going to tear it down. The first call I made was to our mutual friends, starting with her closest ally, Lauren. Lauren and her husband, Mike, had been family friends for years. We went on vacations together. They were the kind of friends you assumed would always have your back. I started simple. Hey, Mike, got a second? Jeremy, how's it going? I paused, letting the weight of what I was about to say settle in. Not great, actually. I figured you should know. Alexis and I are divorcing. There was a beat of silence. Wait, what? Are you serious? Yeah. Look, I'm not going to get into all the details right now, but let's just say Alexis hasn't exactly been faithful. Another pause. I could almost hear Mike processing what I'd said. Are you sure? I clenched my jaw. I'm sure. I have proof. And Mike, she's been lying to all of us. Friends turned allies. The fallout started almost immediately. Mike must have told Lauren because within an hour, my phone buzzed with a new message. Lauren, Jeremy, is this true? About Alexis? I debated whether to respond, but then I realized this was exactly what Alexis feared most. Exposure. I replied. Me? It's true. I have proof. She's been seeing multiple men for months, maybe longer. The dots indicating Lauren was typing appeared, then disappeared. It took her a full minute to reply. Lauren, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. Me? I appreciate it. But I need you to understand. She's going to try to spin this. She's going to tell you I'm controlling, that I've been spying on her. But that's not the whole story. Lauren, I won't let her manipulate me. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know. I stared at the screen, feeling a flicker of something I hadn't felt in days. Control. Alexis's carefully curated world was starting to crack, and the people she thought she could rely on were slipping through her fingers. Family isn't safe either. Next, I called her parents. I didn't enjoy that part. Her dad, Robert, had always treated me like a son, but he deserved to know the truth. Jeremy, how's my favorite son-in-law? He answered cheerfully. I swallowed hard. Robert, there's something we need to talk about. When I told him, the silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, he sighed. I can't believe this. I wouldn't have believed it either, I said. But it's true. I've got proof. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm asking for full custody of the kids. His voice was heavy. The kids. Jeremy, they love their mother. I know, and I'm not trying to take her away from them, but they need stability. They need someone who's going to put them first. There was another long pause before he finally spoke. Do what you have to do. I'll talk to her. The work fallout. Alexis had always taken pride in her job at the marketing firm. She was a rising star, someone who could charm clients and close deals effortlessly. But there was one little problem. The company had a strict anti-fraternization policy. And thanks to the proof I'd collected, photos, videos, and text messages, it was clear that Alexis had been crossing the line with at least one of their biggest clients. I sent an anonymous email to her HR department. Subject, urgent. Violation of company policy. Attached were the screenshots and video clips that made it painfully clear what Alexis had been up to on company time. Within hours, I received a reply. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We take these matters seriously and will conduct a thorough investigation. I knew what that meant. Alexis was about to lose more than just her marriage. Her reaction. That night, Alexis stormed into the house, slamming the door behind her. Her face was red with fury, her eyes blazing as she marched into the living room where I was waiting. What the hell did you do? She shouted. I stayed seated, calm and composed. I told the truth. You called my parents? You told our friends? And HR? Are you insane? I met her gaze evenly. No, I'm done protecting you. I'm done letting you lie to everyone while you play the victim. People deserve to know who you really are. She threw her hands up in frustration. You're ruining my life. No, I said coldly. You ruined it. I'm just making sure everyone else sees the mess you made." Her chest heaved as she tried to steady her breathing. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "What do you want, Jeremy?" she whispered. I stood, stepping closer until there was barely any space between us. "I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything. To watch your life fall apart because of your own choices. I want you to know that you don't get to hurt people and walk away without consequences." Her voice trembled. "You don't have to do this." I leaned in, my voice low and steady. "Yes, I do." The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, legal meetings, and increasingly frantic messages from Alexis. The fallout from my actions hit her like a sledgehammer. Her job? Gone. Her friends? Turning their backs. Her carefully constructed facade? Crumbling faster than she could patch it up. The final blow came when I served her with the divorce papers. She stood on the porch, staring at the envelope in her hands, her expression blank. For once, she had no clever comeback, no manipulative twist to throw at me. I stepped outside to face her. "Sign them," I said, my voice flat. Her hands trembled as she looked up at me. "You really want to do this? You want to destroy everything we've built?" I crossed my arms. "You destroyed it, Alexis. I'm just cleaning up the wreckage." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with a bitter laugh, she shook her head. "You're a monster," she spat. "You don't care about our family. You just want revenge." I stared at her, unflinching. "You're right. I do want revenge. But you know what else I want? I want peace. I want a life where I don't have to wonder who my wife is sneaking off with. I want my kids to grow up in a stable home, not one built on lies." Her expression twisted with anger. "You're never going to be happy. You're too controlling, too obsessed with being the hero. You think you're saving the kids from me, but you're just ruining their lives, too." I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "The kids deserve better than a mother who abandons them to chase her own desires. They deserve better than someone who lies to everyone she claims to love." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I'd shed enough tears for her already. The courtroom showdown. 2 months later, we stood on opposite sides of a courtroom. The custody hearing was brutal. Alexis tried everything. Tears, excuses, even accusations that I was emotionally abusive. But the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence I'd provided was overwhelming. Her affairs, her neglect, her blatant disregard for our family's well-being. It was all laid bare for the court to see. In the end, the ruling was clear. I was awarded primary custody of James and Lila. Alexis was granted limited visitation rights. And the house? It stayed with me and the kids. As we left the courtroom, Alexis caught up to me in the hallway. "Is this what you wanted?" she asked, her voice hollow. "To take everything from me?" I paused, meeting her gaze one last time. "No," I said quietly. "I wanted a family, a real one. But you made that impossible. So now, I'm making sure the people I love are safe." She stared at me for a long time before nodding slowly. "You'll regret this," she whispered, but I knew I wouldn't. The aftermath. Life after Alexis wasn't easy, but it was better. The kids adjusted surprisingly well. They asked about their mother, of course, but I told them the truth in a way they could understand. That sometimes, people make choices that hurt the ones they love, and we have to protect ourselves from that hurt. I focused on rebuilding our lives. James joined the soccer team. Lila took up piano. We had dinners together, game nights, and lazy Sunday mornings where we made pancakes and laughed about silly things. For the first time in years, the house felt peaceful. I still thought about Alexis sometimes. Wondered if she ever regretted what she did. But it didn't consume me the way it once did. One evening, as I tucked Lila into bed, she looked up at me with her big, curious eyes. "Daddy, are we happy?" she asked. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yeah, sweetheart. We're happy." And for the first time, I believed it.